Hello, my name is Lou Carmellini, and I'm a strategic marketing advisor to the California Mobility Center. I'm here today talking with Mark Rawson, the Chief Operating Officer of the California Mobility Center, and Scott Ungerer, founder and managing director of Enertech Capital, a founding partner of the California Mobility Center. Guys, it's good to have you here.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Two of the critical needs for future mobility success are one, the need to succeed in California, and two, the need for successful partnerships between early stage innovators and industry incumbents. Mark, I'm going to start with you. Tell us about the need to succeed in California.
Well, California has a very robust mobility ecosystem already in existence. It's the second largest EV market in the world, has 46% of the EV market share in the United States, and really, from a market standpoint, has traditionally been kind of that bellwether market for the rest of the United States, and I would say for the globe. It's why more than 40% of the mobility startups choose to have California as their hub because of the size of that market. But coupled with that, it's also the epicenter for some of the most progressive regulations being made in the world that is driving the future mobility marketplace. It's home to one of the largest innovation centers in the world in the software space with Silicon Valley here in Northern California. It's why there's over 20 venture capital funds in the state that have mobility as part of their investment portfolio. It's got some of the leading research and academic institutions. Most of the large OEMs have a research presence here in the state of California. But the reality of it is, it's a ecosystem that's fractured. And a lot of startups coming into California really struggle with navigating this ecosystem in order to successfully launch new products or services to the marketplace here in California.
Good recap of the California market. Scott, as a venture capitalist, you've seen more than your fair share of partnerships between early stage companies and industry incumbents. Why are these important, and do they always work? And if not, what are some of the areas of friction that can derail them?
There's a litany of reasons that create or causes a friction in the relationship between that early stage innovation company and the incumbent. I think of it this way. The early stage innovation company is able to pursue creativity as a high priority because during that development phase, they don't have the burden of providing product to a marketplace simultaneous with that creation. So they're able to skip ahead from what's out in the current marketplace, which is by the definition is what we want innovators to do. However, the incumbents, technically and supply the existing marketplace, and they have long trusted relationships with their customers that they don't want to sacrifice the experience and lose them to somebody else. However, the innovation companies need to work with those incumbents to get to that marketplace. And the incumbents need to work with the early stage companies because that's an increasing portion of the innovation pie that's being created. So, during this time, we need to improve the pace and timing of that relationship. The typical approach is for the early stage company to do a pilot with an incumbent. The early stage company is very desirous of creating an initial purchase order. The incumbent is more interested in testing to see if it works, and in many cases don't have any urgency to actually go to market. So there's a lot of time and energy spent in a pilot that results in no long-term relationship. That really doesn't work for either party, in our opinion. And me and Mark and several of our colleagues have sat in both seats, the early stage company and the incumbent, and we think there's a better way for this to work going forward. And that's what we're building into the way the CMC helps companies work with incumbents.
Yeah, and if I could add, Scott, I think there's also, from an incumbent standpoint, there's a lot of large company processes, business processes that are, they're designed for a certain purpose. Procurement being a good example of that, where they're hampered in their ability to work in a more collaborative way with these early stage companies because of procurement and business rules that large incumbents have to adhere to, that slow down the innovation process. And so this is yet another key friction area that hampers the relationship between incumbents and these early stage companies bringing new products to market.
Well, Mark, I know this may be running long here, but I feel there's an additional point that needs to be made here. Both the automotive industry and the electric power industry are very capital intensive, and they have as their primary objectives safety and reliability of their products. And both of these industries, to a large degree, were able to manage the pace of change within their industries themselves. But we're in a dynamic now where the customer has now taken hold of the pace of desired change, and the marketplace is shifting by itself and pulling those industries along. And a way for the automotive industry and electric industry to be able to match that pace of desired change is to broaden the funnel of where they collect innovation from and build into their solutions. Otherwise, new entrants, will be able to act faster, adopt those new technologies, and do an end run to the ultimate marketplace. So the incumbents have a need to work, in a more productive, quicker fashion with the smaller, earlier stage innovators. And to do that, the earlier stage innovators need to respect the market dynamics that those incumbents are being mindful of in their work.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up, because you just highlighted, two very large incumbent industries, the electric utility industry and the automotive industry, that heretofore, really didn't interact with one another. Specifically, if we're talking about electrification of transportation, here's two very large monolithic industries that now find themselves having to collaborate more closely because they have a different relationship now. One's the fuel provider and one's the technology provider to serve the clients. And each of those industries also have their own inherent cultural aspects that you touched on that can get in the way of innovation. So it's also creating that ability for new stakeholders in this space to learn how to work together more closely for supporting commercialization of new products and services.
Those are all great points. Great discussion, guys. This is the end of our second segment in the video series. The next segment focuses on how the California Mobility Center addresses these issues.